If you're thinking about Python, you should have been able to figure out that at least it's an object. Everything referenceable is an object. And to keep the design consistent, we don't want special things. We want everything to be an object. So it's some kind of object. What kind of object is it? Well, it's a value error. So certainly the last one is correct, that it's an instance of the value error type. Value error is a subtype of exception, so it's also an instance of the exception type. It's not an instance of the IO error type, and that's why the except handler for IO error didn't handle the value error. Here's an example of the kind of experiment you might do to understand what's going on here. So I've changed, instead of having IO error here, I've changed this to exception. So this means any exception that's a subtype of exception will be handled by this exception handler. And what I'm going to do in the handler, I'll print out the type of the exception. Then I have 3 assertions, all about the type of E. The first checks if it's an instance of value error. We expect that to be true. The second checks if it's an instance of exception, which we also expect to be true. And the third checks if it's an instance of IO error. That we expect to be false. You may be able to guess what happens when an assertion fails. Let's try running this code to see. So let's see what happens when we try running this code. And here's what we get. We see that we got the exception, and its type is type exceptions value error. Exceptions is a built-in module to Python, and we don't need to import it. We have the value error exception type. And we can see that the assertion on line 10 failed. That means the first 2 succeeded. And what happened when it failed is we got a new kind of exception, which is an assertion error. Congratulations if you guessed that what happens when an assertion error fails is you get an exception.